A few months ago, I did something a little different. So last year, some researchers at UC Berkeley, UC Davis, and Yale asked me to help them with a study about how to change people's minds about cities and housing. And so I made 3 short videos about that, and I never ended up posting them publicly because they weren't for YouTube. They were for science. So the researchers used my videos in their experiment, which was a randomized control trial, to test which specific messages could shift public attitudes on urbanism. Things like building more apartments, allowing more density, greenlighting the kinds of development that so often seem to make neighbors reach for their pitchforks. And one of the videos was far more persuasive than the others. And honestly, we were kind of surprised by the results. So I'll show you all 3 videos in a bit, and you see if you can figure out which one worked best. Okay, so here's the context. There is a massive housing shortage, but when it comes time to actually building more housing, everyone seems opposed to actually building more housing.
I don't want to see the neighborhood change just to build an apartment building.
What about our real property rights?
Very concerned about the traffic.
I'm not sure how that translates into affordable housing.
You want to vote on something in our neighborhood? Buy some property there first.
We were wondering, is there some magic way of talking about this? Some specific message that could actually convince people to support more homes in their city?
You start with a hypothesis. So you're trying to isolate one type of information in a video.
That's Chris Elmendorf. He's one of the researchers behind the study. The idea is that each of the videos had to be focused. So I couldn't talk about homelessness and then also talk about carbon emissions in the exact same video, because that would make it harder to figure out which argument actually swayed people.
Just like as if you were testing a new drug or medical device, and then you're just comparing differences between the 2 groups.
The other challenge was that I could only talk about the specific topic without relating it back to advocating for more housing. So no pro-housing pitches, just focus on one topic. But before they could test anything, they had to figure out what to test. We needed a hypothesis.
One view of that is that as people get old, they become more set in their ways, and they're just more averse to change. But a second possibility is the people who are old today were exposed to bad city situations when they were young and impressionable. There's an economic theory about what cities achieve. It's certainly true at one point in time that cities were very unsafe places from a health perspective, and now they're quite healthy places.
Okay, so we had our hypothesis. Update people's perspective on cities, and maybe they'll be more receptive to them.
So then we gathered up a bunch of videos, some that we found in the wild, and a couple of them that you very elegantly made.
Each one of the videos I made had a completely different argument. When you're watching, think about which one you find most convincing, and then also try to guess which one you think others found most convincing. Then I'll tell you what the researchers actually found. For this first video, the idea was that if we showed people how cities are engines of prosperity, how they raise incomes for everyone, people might see them a little bit more favorably. Let's take a look. Why do people bother living in cities when they could instead live in a suburban home or out in the countryside? Well, for one, jobs. Most people settle down where they can find a good paying job, and oftentimes that's in a big city. It's a little circular. People go to cities because that's where the jobs are, and businesses go to cities because that's where the people are. Which came first? Well, both, kinda at the same time. Say you're setting up an airplane business. You probably want to set up shop near other airplane companies to get access to the talent pool. And for that exact reason, a lot of similar businesses end up setting up shop near each other. So much so that some cities become hubs for specific industries. And when a lot of businesses cluster in one place, it's easier for people to find work. Say you're an energy researcher. You'd probably have a lot of job opportunities in Houston. Those businesses are competing to hire you, which means you get paid more, which boosts your salary and gives you more leverage if one job doesn't work out. There's usually another one just around the corner. And so we see people in cities earning a higher pay than they would elsewhere. And then more people getting better pay means more demand for other services classes like teachers, baristas, barbers, which then translates into higher pay for everyone else nearby. A plumber can earn twice as much for the exact same work in San Francisco as they would have made elsewhere. It also means that people can specialize, whether as a set design silk screener or a neurointerventional radiologist. In a small town, there just isn't the demand for those skills, but in a city there is, and that specialization fuels even more innovation. When lots of people and businesses cluster together, what economists call agglomeration, ideas spread faster, they build on one another, and new products are invented. We can even see this agglomeration effect show up in patent data. And these innovations improve all of our lives, whether you live in a city or not. From solar panels to Snuggies to the sequencing of the human genome, innovation that comes out of the meeting of minds in cities has drastically improved our quality of life. That growth from innovation translates into even more revenue for public services without higher tax rates. In fact, the tax revenue from economic activity in cities makes it possible for taxes to be lower in surrounding areas. Here are maps of where cities are net revenue positive, meaning that these areas help pay for far more services elsewhere. So even if you're not in the center of the city, you're in the suburbs or the countryside, you can still appreciate the existence of cities for keeping your tax bill a bit lower. City life might not be for everyone, but the people who choose to live in cities benefit us all through the innovation and economic growth that cities enable. So that was number one. For number two, people go through different stages of life. As a kid in the suburbs, as job seekers in big cities, back to the suburbs to raise a family, and then downsizing in a quaint downtown as seniors. So what if we showcase how people move through different environments for different stages of life? Maybe that could make cities seem like less of a threat and more of a legitimate lifestyle choice for different kinds of people. Let's take a look. If you believe this online quiz, your answer to this question will determine if you were destined to be a city person or a suburb person. But it's not so simple. We aren't actually destined to be city people or suburb people. There isn't a team city or team suburb. Most of us move back and forth throughout our lives. We're the same people, just prioritizing different things at different points in time. So let's take a look at the natural life stage cycle that happens between cities and suburbs. Cities attract young people looking to learn skills, to network, to jumpstart their careers. In the city, there are more dating options, more places to go, more Instagrammable lattes. But at some point, priorities shift. If you want to start a family or just want more space, the suburbs start looking pretty good. Schools, backyards, quiet neighborhoods, Costco. Then maybe that hour-long commute to work doesn't look so bad. And then one day, as an empty nester, you might think, why am I mowing this gigantic lawn? And so some people head back to cities, drawn to restaurants, shops, theater, healthcare, walkability. So whether you live in a city or the suburbs, they all have their time and place. It's not like one is better than the other. Where we live isn't about picking a team. It's about finding the best fit for this chapter of our lives. So that was video number 2. So now for video number 3. This one is about health. In fantasy medieval settings and in news coverage of developing countries, we often see cities portrayed as these dirty, disease-ridden places.
Bring out your dead!
But the exact opposite is true for modern cities. So is this misconception driving opposition? And could we make a difference if we set the record straight? Let's take a look. For most of human history, cities were kinda terrible for your health. Living in a city actually shortened your life expectancy compared to rural areas. But today, it's the opposite. Cities can actually help people live longer. So what changed? Well, in the mid to late 1800s, city life often meant dealing with outbreaks of things like cholera, tuberculosis, cowpox, and living in close quarters meant diseases spread quickly. But by the early 1900s, innovations in water treatment cleaned up drinking water, investments in sewer systems removed waste, indoor plumbing reduced exposure to harmful bacteria, garbage collection kept streets cleaner, and workplace reforms improved safety. Modern medicine, like penicillin, helped fight infections infections. Today, cities are home to top-tier hospitals, cutting-edge research labs, and medical specialists. This proximity naturally fosters collaboration and innovation, which then drives forward progress in public health. It's kind of funny, what once made cities breeding grounds for disease, people being packed close together, has also made them the perfect incubator for thwarting disease and for spurring other medical breakthroughs. Beyond medicine, cities help promote healthy lifestyles. Walkable neighborhoods encourage daily exercise. Easy access to world-class healthcare saves lives. Strong social connections help combat loneliness. Cities have come a long way over the past few hundred years, so much so that they're now some of the best places to live a longer, healthier life. So the experiment didn't just test my video, so the researchers also gathered content from other creators too, covering topics like homelessness and urban aesthetics. Mine were just one part of a much bigger pool. The study unfolded in 2 phases, starting with a smaller screening round to identify which videos were actually worth testing with a larger audience. Basically, a battle royale of housing rhetoric. And 2 of mine got knocked out of the tournament at that stage. Which one do you think actually made it through to the final round and changed hearts and minds? I was surprised. I thought for sure it was going to be the economic one, the one about higher wages and agglomeration. That argument felt the strongest to me, and Chris actually thought so too.
I thought your video was really a much more emotionally accessible way of expressing those ideas.
But in the small test group, it didn't move the needle. Maybe economics isn't the thing that's driving people in terms of their opposition or support for new housing. And for number 2, for the life stages video,
I hadn't seen that life cycle message conveyed in what I thought was an effective way prior to that video.
But it didn't advance either. It was the health video. Cities used to kill you, now they don't. That one came out on top. After watching it, people were actually more favorable towards allowing 5-story apartment buildings along major streets in cities. And it moved the needle a little bit, but not nearly as much as talking about homelessness. And then talking about crime made people less supportive, no surprise there. And then talking about modern buildings being ugly really made people not want more housing, sometimes more than crime. It's interesting. Respondents opposed ugly buildings even when that building was described as being in another neighborhood all the way across the country, suggesting that voters care about how cities look in general, not just what's on their street. And the data here is pretty strong. I've seen other studies, like this one from Aesthetic City, that expose how drastically most people react to design, preferring beautiful traditional building styles. In a related previous study, he also found that this video, describing the housing market as a cruel game of musical chairs, where when there aren't enough homes, the poorest family is the one who ends up without a home, was extremely effective.
Exposing people to that video did have a huge effect on both their economic beliefs, and it had dramatic effects on people's support for both building more apartments near transit and building more suburban homes on open land near existing cities. To me, that suggests like there actually are economic messages that can penetrate. They're not as accessible to people immediately as are messages about aesthetics or messages about good guys and bad guys, developers traditionally being bad guys, but maybe people who could become good guys. But figuring out the formats in which that kind of information can become accessible and easily understood is I think, a challenge.
So the takeaways: talk about homelessness, talk about musical chairs, and do not build ugly buildings if you really want more housing. I'm curious, do you have hypotheses or like ideas for what you want to work on next?
Thinking about how to do is to measure not just people's preferences, but people's willingness to engage in behaviors that maybe have a little cost to them personally. Things like showing up at a public meeting, writing to your representative, or reposting social media content.
It's one thing to say you support more housing. It is another thing to actually show up to a public hearing and then say it out loud. And I can tell you from being on city council, there is a huge gap between what people say they support and then what they actually do. So it's easy to say you support a good thing, but hard to actually follow through when faced with personal impacts, grumpy residents, budget constraints. For better or worse, showing up is how policy gets made. So I would love to see that study if they ever do it. Now, as for my videos that got cut,
it's possible we just had bad luck in the small sample, right? If you don't have the budget for it, some things end up getting cut.
So I'm running my own experiment. I'm posting each one of them as a short, and we'll see how many views they each get. Admittedly, it's not very scientific, but I'm still curious to see how it plays out.
But I am genuinely interested in seeing whether those videos gain traction through social media or through your website or the other ways in which you communicate them. Because if they do gain traction, maybe we'll come back, or maybe someone else will be able to test them further and figure out what's going on with them. I thought they were terrific.
So we'll see whether the algorithm thinks one of them is better than the others, whether the comments can tell me something. Let's see if we can glean any insights as they get released to the whims of the algorithm. I'd be curious to hear from you all. Is there an argument about housing that we didn't cover in this video that you think might actually work to change people's minds on housing? Please let me know. I'm also posting a link to the study and some similar ones in the description, alongside other links like that Cruel Musical Chairs video. And as always, a big thank you to my supporters on YouTube and Patreon. I could not do this without you.